Lance Hurd is the most important player right now on Tennessee's roster. Why? Because if he comes through, we're going to get into some of the why and why not. He wasn't available against Oklahoma. But Caleb, if he comes through, I firmly believe that Tennessee is a great team if he's 100% healthy the entire season. I don't think he's a special player. We'll get into that. But as far as the most important player, let's not say the MVP. Let's say the MIP, most important player. I think right now is Lance Hurd, because certainly you would not give up a Cooper Mays or a Nico or a Keenan Pili or even a Jamad McCoy for a healthy Lance Hurd. He hasn't proven enough. But Caleb, I believe that right now he's the most important ball because you know what you're getting out of those other guys. So those to me are known commodities. So is that the MIP? Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Bank on it. He is. Commercial Bank member FDIC. Life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial Bank for personal and business. Commercial Bank. Life made better. CBTN.com. CBTN.com. Am I wrong?
Okay. Nico Iamaleava is still the MIP. However,
well, no, but we know what we're getting out of him.
He's still the MIP. I don't care. But I'm getting to your point with Lance Hurd. Lance Hurd is the most important lineman. He's your $1 million lineman. And
well, they paid him $1 million.
There you go. He's worth $1 million. And honestly, we don't know all the details of what went on Saturday and why he was at the game. But if there's some NIL issues, pay the man his money. And I'll say this: Lance Hurd is crucial for Tennessee at left tackle. Tennessee is very thin on the offensive line. That is the last spot that they haven't fully upgraded their roster yet. And it is why Heupel showed, going back to our previous segment, Heupel showed a level of maturity that you don't see in a lot of offensive coaches by sitting on that lead on Saturday, because he knew the situation at tackle. Caleb, you got to get him back.
Caleb, I love you, but there's no question in my mind. And I'm going to tell you why, that he's the MIP, because he is an unknown quantity right now. Those other guys are known quantities. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, here's why he's the MIP. It's the other tackles. I like Dane Davis. As a matter of fact, I think that Lance Hurd's physical ability has been a little overrated by the supposed scouts and analysts when he came from LSU to Tennessee. I don't think he's a particularly fast twitch guy. I don't think he explodes off the line. I think he's a big body, and I think that he can be like a Michael Munoz type. However, is he worth $1 million? Well, certainly not when you can't show up and play against Oklahoma. Dane Davis, I know, struggled on Saturday against Oklahoma. I know Dane Davis struggled, Caleb, but I don't know that Lance Hurd has proven anything that he would be that much better. If he showed up, he's not going to be a fast twitch guy, like I mentioned. I don't think he's nearly as good as his rating, but he's probably better than Dane Davis. No offense to Dane, because he's going to be physically more gifted and he's bigger. I think he's the most important player right now on Tennessee's roster that we don't know about.
Okay.
In other words, I've seen, and maybe I'm changing the question up on you. I know enough about Nico, I believe, that he's going to be fantastic by the end of the year and is already really good. I do not know enough about Lance Hurd, who can't get on the field, to know that he's much better than Dane Davis. However, I would argue this: Hurd would at least provide some depth, and Tennessee's coaches thought he would be better. So he would, right now, you're down to Larry Johnson, and Larry Johnson is not ready to play if John Campbell Jr. can't go. And if they have to go out there with Larry Johnson on any sort of consistent basis at right tackle, guys, it could mean Tennessee not winning 10 games. I hope you don't think that's too strong, Caleb, but I do. I think that if they're playing with Larry Johnson the rest of the year, I believe it's a 9-3 football team, because that means that Dane Davis is in the game at left tackle. That means there's no Lance Hurd. I would say it's a 10-3, a 9-3 football team.
Here's what's more unknown about this, though. Dane Davis and Larry Johnson, they did look really bad on Saturday. There's no sugarcoating that. That was probably the best collection of edge rushers Tennessee's going to face all year, except for maybe Georgia. I don't even think Alabama's that good on the edge. I think Alabama's better than Oklahoma, don't get me wrong. But Dave, come on, let's be fair. Oklahoma's got, at the very least, the best defensive front and a very complex defensive coordinator as head coach. And I think can we at least be fair to them on that front?
No, that's fair. But I don't think that Larry Johnson's ready, regardless.
Okay,
based on people I've talked to and watching him go out there on Saturday and the lack of confidence that Josh Heupel had in him. So, yeah, maybe I'm being a little bit hard on him, but I just don't think he has the ability to be an elite offensive tackle. Now, Lance Hurd might not either, okay? But let's see. The other thing, if you get Lance Hurd back, Dane Davis is probably, even though he's like 7'8", better suited to play guard. I believe that's where he's better suited to play. You have a utility guy, theoretically, at each position, and you have some, albeit like the kiddie pool, some depth. Caleb, right now, they have no depth. If somebody goes down without Lance Hurd in the lineup, they're in a lot of trouble no matter who they play.
Yes, that's very true. And that was the biggest concern for Tennessee going in. We already knew center was a question, because beyond Cooper Mace, and now we know tackle's a question beyond the two starters. Tennessee's just thin on the line, man. They're just very, very, very thin. And a lot of their own recruits just haven't worked out the way they want them to. If we're going to be honest on this.
No, I agree. I completely agree. Shem Umarov is not there yet. He had an opportunity to Andre Keurig being okay at left guard. Now, as it turns out, I think Keurig's done a fine job this year. However, let's look at Tennessee's depth. Cooper Mays is one of the most important players on the team.
Yeah.
But I've heard incredible things about William Satterwhite physically. He's not going to handle it mentally as well as Cooper. He's not going to be the cool, calm guy that doesn't let you get upset at Florida. Okay? That's a fact. However, physically, maybe he's somewhat close. I'm going to make that argument for a second. And you know that I think Coop's one of the most valuable players on the team. However, I would argue without Lance Hurd that Tennessee could be in worse shape because Davis is great. Campbell tends to get hurt and can't make it through a game. So I could make the argument that Hurd's more important than Cooper, although I don't believe that. I think we're underestimating, even if Lance Hurd's average, how important he is.
Yes, he is important, but no, he's not more important than Cooper, largely because the interior blocking is just more important in this offense than the tackles. Look, Oklahoma's an exception. Dave, for most of the season, tackles can be below average in Tennessee's system. And I know that's crazy to say, but they can afford to be below average in Tennessee's system, except for when they're playing Oklahoma, Georgia, and maybe Alabama. And they just got past one of those teams. So this is where I break from you. If Lance Hurd goes down, I still think 10-2 is almost a lock.
Okay. I disagree, because I don't think John Campbell can make it through the season undefeated. I think if Lance Hurd's out from this point forward, and I want to address this too. If Lance Hurd's out moving forward, I think they're a 9-3 team. You think they can still go 10-2? I'm not ruling it out. But
I think they're 10-2 if Lance Hurd and John Campbell are out. I don't think the tackles are that important, except for when they play elite edge rushers.
Well,
in this system,
Josh Heupel might argue with you based off his play calling against Oklahoma. Now,
that's an elite set of edge rushers, though. I'm saying outside of those teams, he's not going to work. He's not going to have to call a game like that otherwise.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Now, you made reference to this. So let me ask you this. If this does have something to do with NIL money, and we don't know that, but it's a big enough rumor that we're going to address it right now. Please hit like and subscribe if you just jumped on the channel. You would do what with Lance Hurd? You said you'd pay him his money.
I'd negotiate with him. Now, if he's like, I need $1 billion. I want it. What was it in Austin Powers? I want a $1 trillion. Like, yeah, like you negotiate. You say, I'm not just going to open a blank check for you. You have to have some principles. But here's what I will say about running a program. And it is true. I don't believe in sacrificing principles for what you need in a season, because you know this, Dave, you're building a program long-term. You can't do that, right? I mean, that's just how things work. If you do it one time, you set yourself down a path that screws you up for the rest of time, don't you?
It's the same way as the reason Alvin Kamara didn't play more, because they paid Jalen Hurd and they were afraid Jalen Hurd would flip on them.
Yeah.
So you can't go down that path or you lose all leverage. I'll say it again. Lance Hurd is the most important player on this team that's an unknown commodity right now. And I think that he ranks right up there with the most important players. Quickly, before we get to Mike Griffith.
Yes. And so what I would say is that I'm not on principle against players wanting to renegotiate NIL though in season. So I'm okay with Heupel doing that, because I think that should be a principle he allows, because I think players should be allowed to renegotiate NIL in season. And so I renegotiate with Lance Hurd because of that.
Maybe it's a topic for another day, but I say you show up, and he showed up when, in January?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. That's when your deal's done. You moved in. That's when your deal's done. You especially don't negotiate during the season.
So see, if you believe that principle, then yes, you don't negotiate. Then you don't make an exception for Lance Hurd, because you can't make exceptions on these principles, even if it hurts your season.
Caleb, you have a contract. Would you suddenly negotiate it in the middle of the season?
No, I wouldn't. But at the same time, it's a little bit different. I'm not on a limited time. If you told me I can only work for you for a year and I'm generating a ton of revenue during that year, I might renegotiate mid-season. College football, this isn't the NFL. You have such a window that if you start performing at a higher clip than you were projected to or paid to, it's not like you can come back the next year and ask more money. You might be gone the next year. No, man, take your money.
Okay, the guy's making $1 million.
Maybe.
And if he held himself out whatsoever, he needs to be told to hit the bricks.
The only thing better than a crawfish dinner is 5 crawfish dinners. The only thing better than $1 million is 1.5 million. Lance Hurd's knowing his value. And by the way, he's a little banged up.
Well, just for the record, the only thing better than a crawfish dinner is a lobster dinner. And Lance Hurd's not a lobster.